My coworker accused me of SA, and my company fired me the same day. No questions. No hearing, but she made one mistake. She didn't know I had proof. I used to believe that if you kept your head down and worked hard, the world would eventually notice. That was the lie I lived by. For 3 years, my entire life revolved around the glass tower downtown, where I worked as a senior analyst. Every morning, I'd step out of the subway with a paper cup of burnt coffee in my hand, staring up at my reflection in the mirrored building, reminding myself that this was all temporary. Long hours now, better life later. That was the deal I made with myself. My name is Daniel, and I was known in the office as the reliable one, the guy who never said no, the one who stayed when everyone else left. I was the first to arrive, and usually the last light still on in our section late at night. I didn't complain, I didn't socialize much, I just worked. And it was finally paying off. The team lead position had opened up after our manager transferred, and everyone knew I was the strongest candidate. Even Mr. Harris, our department head, had dropped hints. "Keep this up, Dan," he'd said one evening, leaning against my cubicle wall while I typed. "You're exactly the kind of person this team needs to lead it." Those words replayed in my head every time exhaustion tried to win. There was only one other person in the running, Mia. Mia was different from me in every way. Where I was quiet, she was confident. Where I blended in, she stood out. She had this way of filling a room with her energy, laughing loud, touching people's arms when she spoke, making sure everyone remembered she was there. People liked her, managers noticed her. We worked together often, and on the surface, things were friendly. She'd swing by my desk with her tablet, pretending to ask about reports, but always steering the conversation back to the promotion. "So, future boss," she teased one afternoon, perching on the edge of my desk. "Don't forget us little people when you get that corner seat." I laughed awkwardly. Nothing's decided yet. But inside, I felt a flicker of pride. For once, I wasn't invisible. Still, something about her attention made me uneasy. She asked too many questions. About my schedule, about which projects I was leading, about what Mr. Harris had said to me. I told myself she was just competitive. That's normal, right? The week before the final decision, the tension in the office was thick. Everyone could feel it. Rumors bounced between cubicles. Some said HR had already made up their minds. Others said it was between me and Mia, neck and neck. That Friday, as I packed up to leave, Mia appeared again, blocking the aisle with her arms crossed. "Looks like one of us is about to change our lives," she said, smiling, but her eyes were sharp, measuring. "Yeah," I replied, "good luck." She tilted her head. "You too. Daniel, may the best one win." As I walked away, I had no idea that those words were the last normal thing she'd ever say to me. Because 2 days later, on a quiet Monday morning, I got an email from HR asking me to come to their office immediately. No explanation, no subject line, just "please come see us." I remember staring at my screen, feeling a strange chill run through me. My stomach tightened for reasons I couldn't explain. I told myself it was probably about the promotion. Maybe they wanted to discuss the role. Maybe this was it. I straightened my tie, took a deep breath, and walked down the hallway, already imagining how I'd call my parents later to tell them the good news. But when I pushed open that HR door, I didn't walk into the future I'd been building for 3 years. I walked straight into the beginning of my worst nightmare. The HR office smelled like lemon cleaner and stale air. The kind that made you feel like you weren't supposed to be there long. 2 chairs sat across from a narrow table. On the far side were Miss Reynolds from HR and Mr. Harris, my department head. Both avoided my eyes as I stepped in. "Daniel, have a seat," Miss Reynolds said. Folding her hands like this was going to be a polite conversation. I sat, heart thudding. Is this about the team lead role? No one answered right away. Mr. Harris cleared his throat. "Daniel, a serious complaint has been made against you." The room seemed to tilt. "A complaint?" Miss Reynolds slid a folder across the table. My name was printed on the tab. "You've been accused of inappropriate conduct toward a coworker," she said carefully, "specifically sexual assault." For a second I honestly thought I'd misheard her. The words didn't make sense. "That's impossible," I said, laughing once out of pure shock. "You have to be kidding." Neither of them smiled. My hands started shaking. "Who said that when? I've never." "The complainant is Mia," Miss Reynolds interrupted, her voice flat. "Mia." The name hit harder than the accusation itself. My mind raced back through every interaction we'd ever had, conversations at desks, meetings, emails, casual jokes. Nothing, there was nothing even remotely close to what they were implying. "This is a mistake," I said, leaning forward. "She's lying, I swear to you. I would never touch her or anyone like that." Miss Reynolds opened the folder. "She claims that last Thursday evening, after most staff had left, you cornered her near the copy room, made advances, and touched her without consent." My chest tightened. Thursday evening. I had stayed late that day, but not alone. I was in the conference room finishing the quarterly report. I said quickly, "I wasn't near the copy room." "You can check the logs." I emailed the report at 9:12 p.m. Mr. Harris finally looked up, his eyes full of something like disappointment. "Daniel, these allegations are very serious. Mia was extremely distressed when she came to us." "So you just believe her?" I shot back, anger breaking through the fear. "Without even asking me first." Miss Reynolds held up a hand. "We are conducting an internal investigation. For now, you are being placed on immediate suspension without pay." My ears rang. "Suspension? You can't do that. I've worked here for 3 years, you know me." "This is standard procedure," she replied. "You are not to contact Mia or discuss this matter with anyone in the office." I stood up so fast my chair scraped loudly against the floor. "You're making a huge mistake. I want this on record. I deny everything." Mr. Harris sighed. "We'll be in touch." That was it, no chance to defend myself, no questions. Just like that, I was escorted out by security, past coworkers who stared at me like I was already guilty. Whispers followed me down the hallway. I could feel eyes burning into my back. By the time I stepped outside into the cold air, my whole body was trembling. I sat in my car for a long time, gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe. My phone buzzed with messages from colleagues asking why I'd left early. I couldn't bring myself to answer. At home, the silence was unbearable. I paced my apartment, replaying the meeting over and over. My mind stuck on one thought. Why? Then, as I collapsed onto my couch, my laptop chimed with a new email notification. From HR. Subject: termination of employment. I opened it with numb fingers. It said that based on preliminary findings, my employment was terminated effective immediately. I was instructed to return my badge and company equipment by the next morning. No hearing, no defense, no chance. I felt something inside me break. I buried my face in my hands and whispered, "This can't be happening." But it was, and in that moment, alone in my apartment, I realized I wasn't just fighting for my job anymore. I was fighting for my name. The next morning felt unreal, like I was moving through someone else's life. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that HR office again. Heard the word assault echoing in my head like a verdict already passed. I packed my laptop, badge, and notebook into my backpack and drove to the office one last time. The parking lot was full, just like any normal workday. That somehow made it worse. The world hadn't stopped, even though mine had. At reception, the security guard didn't even look at me. He just pointed to a plastic bin on the counter. "Put it there," he muttered. I did, feeling like I was dropping pieces of my life into that box. Outside, my phone buzzed, a text from my mom. "Honey, your aunt heard something about trouble at work. Are you okay?" I stared at the screen. I didn't even know how to begin explaining. So I just typed, "I got fired, I'll call later." By noon, the news was already spreading. I learned that the hard way when my friend and former teammate, Jason, called me. "Man, what the hell is going on?" he asked, his voice tense. "People are saying some crazy stuff." My stomach dropped. "Like what?" He hesitated. "They're saying you did something to Mia." "I didn't," I said immediately. "Jason, you know me. You really think I could do that?" "I don't know what to think," he replied quietly. "HR told us not to talk about it. They said it's serious." "So that's it," I snapped. 3 years working side by side. And now you don't know what to think." There was silence on the line. "I'm sorry, man," he finally said. I hope the truth comes out." After he hung up, I threw my phone onto the couch. One by one, I watched people I thought were friends pull away. Messages stopped, calls went unanswered. It was like I'd been erased from their world overnight. By evening, I finally called my parents. I told them everything, the accusation, the suspension, the termination. My voice shook as I spoke, but I forced myself to be clear. My dad was the first to speak. "Daniel, are you telling us the whole truth?" That question cut deeper than any HR email. Yes, I said firmly. I swear on everything I didn't do this. My mom sighed. We just can't believe someone would make up something like that for no reason. So you think I did? I asked, my throat tight. No, she said quickly, but we don't know. These things happen, you know. Sometimes men don't realize. I stopped her. Mom, I know exactly what I do and don't do. And I would never hurt anyone. We support you, my dad finally said. But you should be prepared, this could be bad. After the call ended, I sat in the dark, staring at the blank TV screen. Even my own parents weren't fully convinced. At around 2 a.m., I opened my laptop. I searched my emails with Mia, then chat logs, then project files. I was desperate, grasping for anything that could prove where I'd been that Thursday night. And then I found it. A calendar reminder for the conference room booking. My name, that exact date, 7 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. My heart started pounding. I dug deeper. Security logs. I remembered swiping my badge to access the room. If the system kept records, that could show I never went near the copy room. I opened my sent emails. There it was, the quarterly report sent at 9:12 p.m. With timestamps, attachments, everything. I wasn't alone either. I suddenly remembered the cleaning staff had come in while I was still working. 2 people, a man and a woman. They'd even joked about me working too hard. Witnesses. For the first time since the accusation, a small spark of hope lit inside me. They fired me without hearing me. I whispered to myself, but they won't get away with this. I leaned back in my chair, exhaustion washing over me. But now it was mixed with something else. Determination. But I promised myself that night, in the quiet of my apartment, I will prove the truth, and I won't let them bury me alive. Morning came without relief. I'd barely slept. But my mind was sharper than it had been since the accusation. That small spark of hope from the night before had turned into a fire I couldn't ignore. If I had even a chance to clear my name, I had to act fast. I created a folder on my desktop and named it simply, Truth. Inside it, I saved everything that proved where I was on the night Mia claimed the assault happened. The conference room booking, the quarterly report draft history, the final email I'd sent at 9:12 p.m. Each file was like a brick in a wall I was building to protect myself. But digital proof alone wasn't enough. I knew that. Anyone could argue timestamps were manipulated or misunderstood. I needed people, real voices. The cleaning staff. I remembered their faces vaguely. A middle-aged man with kind eyes and a younger woman who had laughed when I apologized for still being there so late. I called the building management company. After being transferred 3 times, I finally reached a supervisor. I'm trying to contact the cleaning crew that worked Thursday night. 3 weeks ago, I said, it's important. There was a pause. We can't give out personal information, she replied cautiously. I understand, I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. But I've been accused of something serious. I just need someone to confirm they saw me in the conference room that night. Please. Another pause, longer this time. Email me your details, she said finally. I can ask if they're willing to speak. Next, I turned to the security system. I knew badge swipes were logged. I found the general IT help desk email and wrote a careful message, explaining that I needed access records for my badge on the night of March 14th. I didn't mention the accusation. I just said it was for a personal legal matter. After hitting send, I leaned back and rubbed my face. By noon, my phone rang, an unknown number. Hello, I answered. This is Rosa from Evergreen Cleaning Services. A soft voice said, my supervisor said you were asking about that Thursday night. My heart jumped. Yes, thank you so much for calling. I remember you, she said. You were in the glass room on the 3rd floor. Typing like crazy, you even asked if we needed the space. Yes, I said quickly. Do you remember about what time that was? It was late, she replied, after 8. We finished our floor around 9:30, and you were still there. I closed my eyes in relief. Would you be willing to write a statement? Or talk to a lawyer if needed? There was a moment of hesitation. If it helps clear your name. Yes, I don't want someone innocent to suffer. I thanked her over and over after we hung up. I felt tears sting my eyes, for days. I'd felt invisible. Now finally someone had seen me. That afternoon, it replied. Badge access logs are archived, but can be retrieved. Please specify the date and time range. I fired back a reply immediately. Within an hour, they sent a spreadsheet. There it was, my name, my badge ID. Entry into the third-floor conference wing at 6:58 p.m., no exit. Until 9:41 p.m., no record of me anywhere near the copy room. This is it, I whispered. This is my alibi. But along with relief came anger. I searched for employment lawyers in my city and started making calls. Most went to voicemail. Then, just before evening, one office called back. This is the firm of Patel and Green. A calm voice said, "You left a message about wrongful termination." "Yes," I replied, "and defamation. I've been falsely accused of sexual assault." "We can see you tomorrow morning at 10, she said. That night, as I organized my evidence into folders and wrote down timelines, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I stared at the ceiling and clenched my fists. They took my job, they took my reputation. I muttered, but they won't take my future. And for the first time, I believed I might actually win. The law office was on the 12th floor of a glass building downtown. Polished marble floor and walls covered in framed degrees and awards. I arrived 20 minutes early, clutching my laptop bag like it was a life raft. I kept telling myself, just tell the truth. When the receptionist called my name, my heart hammered so loud I was sure everyone could hear it. "Mr. Carter," she said kindly. "Miss Patel will see you now." Her office was warm, a bookshelf packed with thick law books, a small plant near the window, and a desk with only a notepad and a pen on it. She stood up as I entered. "I'm Aisha Patel," she said, shaking my hand. "Have a seat, I've read your message. But I want to hear it from you." And I did everything. From the late nights working toward the promotion, to Mia's sudden coldness when she realized I was ahead of her, to the HR meeting that turned into an execution. My voice shook when I described being escorted out of the building like a criminal. She didn't interrupt once, she just listened, occasionally jotting down notes, her eyes never leaving my face. When I finished, I opened my laptop with trembling hands. "I brought what I have so far," I said. One by one, I showed her the badge logs, the email timestamps, the conference room booking, and the written statements Rosa and Marco had already emailed me that morning. I even played the voicemail where Rosa confirmed seeing me that night. Miss Patel leaned back in her chair slowly. "This is strong," she said, "very strong. You were terminated without an internal investigation." She continued, "That alone is a serious problem for the company. But if what you're saying is true and your evidence supports it, this is wrongful termination, defamation, and possibly emotional distress." "Does that mean I have a case?" I asked quietly. She looked at me straight in the eye. "It means they should never have fired you, and it means we fight." Those words hit me harder than anything else had in days. Fight, not beg, not explain, fight. Tears welled up before I could stop them. "I just want my name back," I said. I can't even look at myself without hearing her words in my head. She slid a box of tissues across the desk. "And that's exactly what we'll aim for." Then her tone shifted, becoming sharper. "But I need to ask, are you holding anything back? Any interaction at all that could be twisted?" I shook my head immediately. "Nothing. We were coworkers, that's it." I respected her. I barely even spoke to her outside meetings. "Good," she said, "because once we move forward, they will dig into your life." She explained the plan, first. A formal demand, letter to the company demanding reinstatement. A public retraction and damages. If they refused, we would file a lawsuit against both the company and Mia. "And what about her?" I asked. "She lied, she ruined me." Miss Patel nodded. "If we can prove malice, that she knowingly made a false accusation, she can be personally liable. That includes damages for defamation." A cold shiver ran through me. Part of me wanted justice. Another part just wanted peace. By the end of the meeting, I had signed the papers. She was officially my lawyer. As I stood to leave, she added, "One more thing, do not contact anyone at your old job. Not HR, not your manager, not Mia. Let me handle everything." "I won't," I promised. On the bus ride home, my phone buzzed. An email from my old manager. "We are aware you have been seeking internal data. Any further attempts to access company records may be considered harassment." They were scared. When I got home, another email waited. From it. "Per your request, attached are the full badge logs for March 14th. I forwarded everything to Miss Patel immediately. Her reply came 10 minutes later. "This changes everything. I'm sending the demand letter tomorrow." That night I sat in the dark, staring at my ceiling again. "I'm coming for my name," I whispered, "all of it." The next morning started with a message from Miss Patel that made my pulse spike. "Demand letter sent. Expect a response within 48 hours." I paced my apartment, coffee growing cold on the counter. Phone glued to my hand, every buzz made my heart jump. Around noon Miss Patel called. "They've acknowledged receipt," she said, "and they're nervous." That word again, nervous. It felt unreal that a billion-dollar company could feel anything because of someone like me. "They're asking for time to review internal procedures," she continued, which usually means they're scrambling. "What about Mia?" I asked. A pause. Her personal lawyer contacted me. That tells me she didn't expect this to escalate. I closed my eyes, leaning against the wall. A part of me felt vindicated. Another part just felt tired. The waiting was torture. To distract myself, I went for a walk. When I got back, there was a thick envelope taped to my door. No return address, just my name. Inside was a printed email chain. Messages between HR and my manager from the night of the accusation. I recognized the tone immediately, panic. Damage control, legal buzzwords. One line stood out, highlighted in yellow. "We should terminate immediately. Risk of public fallout is too high if this spreads. No investigation, no interview. Just erase me." My hands shook as I photographed every page and sent them to Miss Patel. Her reply came fast. "This is gold, how did you get this?" "No idea," I typed back, "but I'm not complaining." "Neither am I," she wrote. "This proves they acted in bad faith." That evening the call finally came. Unknown number. "This is Daniel Reeves, corporate counsel for Ardent Solutions." A polished voice said, "We've received your attorney's letter." "Yes," I replied, forcing calm into my voice. "We believe there may have been a misunderstanding," he continued. "The company takes allegations seriously, but we're open to discussing a resolution." "A resolution," I repeated. "You fired me and branded me a criminal without listening to a word I said." Silence for a moment, then "That's why we'd like to talk." "Talk to my lawyer." "That's expected," he said smoothly. "But for what it's worth, Mr. Carter, if there's a path to settle this quietly, it would benefit everyone." "Quietly for who?" I snapped. "You." He didn't answer. 10 minutes later, Miss Patel called. "They reached out to you?" she asked. "Yes." "Good," she said. "It means they're scared. We're meeting them tomorrow afternoon." "Already?" I asked. "They don't want this to go public." She replied, "Neither does Mia." That night, sleep was impossible. My mind replayed every moment at work. The next day, I sat in a conference room. Miss Patel sat beside me. Across the table were 2 company lawyers and an HR executive who couldn't meet my eyes. Daniel Reeves cleared his throat. "We've reviewed the materials your attorney provided." Miss Patel slid a folder across the table. "And we've reviewed yours, or rather the lack of them." She opened it, revealing copies of my evidence, badge logs, witness statements, email timestamps, and the internal HR chain I'd received anonymously. "Your company failed to conduct even a basic investigation." She continued, "You terminated my client within hours, destroying his reputation, and now we have proof." The HR executive swallowed hard. "This looks bad," Daniel admitted. "It is bad," Miss Patel replied. "And it gets worse if we file." Finally, Daniel looked at me. "Mr. Carter," he said carefully, "what is it that you want?" For a moment, I thought of my bank account, my lost job, my ruined plans. But what came out surprised even me. "I want my name cleared," I said, "publicly, and I want her held accountable." The room went quiet. Daniel nodded slowly. "We'll take that under advisement." As we left, Miss Patel leaned toward me. "They're cornered," she whispered. "Now we see how desperate they are." The storm wasn't over, but for the first time, I knew they were feeling it too. I thought after the meeting I'd feel relief. Instead, what settled into my chest was a tight, restless tension, like the air before a thunderstorm. The lawyers had been polite, professional, even apologetic at times, but none of that brought my job back. 2 days passed without a word. I tried to distract myself by cleaning the apartment, by jogging until my lungs burned, by binge-watching shows I didn't even like. But every moment of silence felt loud, every second stretched. Then my phone rang. "Miss Patel." "They've responded," she said, "and so has Mia's attorney." My stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means things are moving, fast. She replied, "Come to my office. You'll want to hear this in person." When I arrived, she was already on a call. She gestured for me to sit and held up one finger. I watched her expression as she listened, calm at first, then slowly sharpening, like a blade being drawn. "Yes," she said finally, "we'll consider that." She hung up and turned to me. That, she said, was Mia's lawyer. My jaw clenched. What does she want? "She wants to talk," Miss Patel said. "Off the record, no company, just you, me, her, and her attorney." "Why?" I asked. "So she can lie again." Miss Patel studied me, "Because she's scared. Your evidence changed the balance. And I think she didn't expect you to fight." "Do I have to go?" I asked. "No," Miss Patel said, "but it might give us insight and leverage." I nodded slowly. "Then I'll go." The meeting was set for the next afternoon at a neutral law office. A small conference room, 4 chairs. When Mia walked in, I barely recognized her. She looked smaller, thinner, dark circles under her eyes. She avoided looking at me, keeping her eyes on the floor as she sat. Her lawyer, a gray-haired man with tired eyes, cleared his throat. "We appreciate you agreeing to meet." I said nothing, I just watched her. Miss Patel leaned forward. "Let's be clear. This is not a negotiation. This is an opportunity for your client to explain herself before formal proceedings." Mia's fingers twisted together in her lap. "I didn't think it would go this far," she said quietly. My chest tightened. "You didn't think accusing me of sexual assault would go this far." She flinched at my tone but still didn't look up. "I was desperate," she whispered. "They said only one of us would get the promotion. I'd worked there longer. I thought it should have been me. So you destroyed me instead." I said, my voice shaking despite my effort to stay calm. Tears welled in her eyes. "I thought HR would just move you to another team, maybe stall the decision. I didn't think they'd fire you." Miss Patel's eyes narrowed. "So you admit the accusation was false?" Mia finally looked up then, and our eyes met. I saw fear there, regret maybe, or just the fear of consequences. "Yes," she said, "it was false." The room went silent. My heart pounded so loud, I thought I might pass out. Her lawyer quickly added, "My client is prepared to provide a sworn statement acknowledging this." "Why now?" I asked. "Why not before I lost everything?" "Because I thought I could get away with it, and now I know I can't." The honesty hurt more than any lie. Miss Patel closed her notebook. "Then here's what will happen. You will sign an affidavit admitting the accusation was false and motivated by personal gain. You will cooperate fully with our case, and you will not attempt to contact my client again, ever." Mia nodded quickly. "I'll do it, I swear." I stood up, my legs weak. "You didn't just try to win a promotion." I said, "You took my life apart." She looked at me, tears streaming. "I'm sorry." For a second, I almost believed her. But then I remembered the cold HR room. "I don't forgive you," I said quietly, "but I will make sure everyone knows the truth." When we left, Miss Patel placed a hand on my shoulder. "This changes everything," she said. "With her admission, the company won't stand a chance." If Mia's confession felt like a crack of thunder, the company's response felt like the storm trying to swallow the sound. 2 days after her sworn affidavit landed on Miss Patel's desk, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I let it ring once, twice, then answered. "Hello? Is this Daniel?" a man asked. His voice was smooth, practiced. "Yes. This is Mr. Mehra, corporate counsel for Horizon Tech. We'd like to speak with you about resolving this situation, amicably." That word amicably made my jaw tighten. "You fired me without a hearing." I said, "You let my name be dragged through the mud. What exactly do you think is amicable about that?" There was a pause, then he said, "We believe mistakes were made on all sides. Our goal is to avoid unnecessary litigation." I laughed, a short, bitter sound. "You should talk to my lawyer." "That would be wise," he agreed. "She can contact me." When I hung up, my hands were shaking, not with fear this time, but with anger. They were calling because they were scared. Miss Patel wasn't surprised when I told her. They always try this once they realize they're exposed. She said, "Let me guess, settlement talk." "Yeah, like they suddenly care about peace." She smiled thinly. "Peace is cheaper than justice." Later that day, she called me back into her office. A thick folder sat open on her desk. "They've offered a settlement," she said, 3 months' salary and a neutral reference. "In exchange, you drop the case and sign a non-disclosure agreement." I stared at her. "That's it?" She nodded. They're hoping you're desperate enough to take it. Desperate? A few weeks ago, I would have said yes without thinking. I'd been living off my savings, counting every dollar, waking up at night worrying about rent. No, I said immediately, they don't get to buy silence. Miss Patel's eyes lit with approval. That's what I was hoping you'd say. She leaned forward, with Mia's affidavit, their internal emails, and the lack of proper investigation. This isn't just wrongful termination anymore. This is negligence, defamation, emotional distress. My chest tightened. So what happens next? We file, she said, publicly. The word echoed in my head. Publicly meant no hiding, no quiet cover-up. It meant my story would come out, and so would theirs. For a moment, fear crept back in. What if people still didn't believe me? What if the stain never really washed off? Miss Patel seemed to read my thoughts. Arjun, she said gently, they already took your silence from you. The only thing left is your voice. I nodded, then let's use it. The lawsuit was filed the next morning. By evening, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Old coworkers, college friends, even a distant cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. Is this about you? I saw something online. Are you okay? They're saying you're suing Horizon Tech. I didn't reply to most of them. I wasn't ready to explain. I wasn't ready to relive it in text messages. But then I saw one message that made my stomach twist. From my old team lead, Rohit. I'm sorry, we should have spoken up. HR told us not to contact you. We knew something was off, but we were scared. I sat on my bed staring at that message for a long time. Scared? That was the word everyone used. Mia was scared to lose a promotion. My coworkers were scared to lose their jobs. HR was scared of liability. And I was the one who lost everything. That night, Miss Patel forwarded me something. An internal email chain from HR to upper management, discussing my case. One line burned into my memory. Even if the evidence is thin, it's safer for the company to let him go than risk backlash. Safer? I wasn't a person to them. I was a risk. I forwarded it back to her with one word, unbelievable. She replied, unforgivable, and very useful. A week later, Horizon Tech released a public statement. They said they stood by their commitment to a safe workplace, and that the lawsuit was without merit. They claimed they had followed all proper procedures. Reading it made my hands shake. Proper procedures? No one had asked for my side. No one had checked the logs. No one had spoken to witnesses. They'd just erased me. Miss Patel called me that evening. They're posturing, she said, trying to look strong before discovery. Discovery, I asked. That's when we get access to their internal records. Messages, reports, everything they didn't want anyone to see. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something close to anticipation. Let them hide, I said. We'll turn on the lights. A few days later, I ran into an old coworker, Nancy, at a grocery store. She froze when she saw me, then hurried over. I've been wanting to talk to you, she said, eyes darting around. What they did to you, it was wrong. Why didn't you say anything? I asked softly. She swallowed. HR told us if we got involved, our names would be in the report. I have a family, I couldn't risk it. I nodded, I understood. But understanding didn't make it hurt less. Before leaving, she said, if your lawyer needs a witness, I'll tell what I saw. Mia was never alone with you, not once. When I told Miss Patel, she smiled. Good, she said, the walls are starting to crack. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and thought about how quickly things were changing. A few weeks ago, I was the man no one believed. Now, the company that discarded me was scrambling to protect itself. They were trying to bury the truth. But for the first time since I'd been walked out of that building, I knew something they didn't. You can't bury something that's already on fire. Walking into the courthouse, that first morning felt nothing like the movies. There was no dramatic music, no speeches. Just cold marble floors, the hum of distant voices, and the weight of knowing that every word spoken inside could decide the shape of my future. I stood beside Miss Patel at the metal detectors, emptying my pockets with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. You okay? She asked quietly. I nodded, even though my stomach felt like it was tied in knots. I've faced worse, I said. I wasn't sure if that was true, but I needed it to be. The hallway outside courtroom 3 smelled faintly of old paper and disinfectant. People sat on benches, whispering, waiting for their own lives to be judged. I wondered how many of them were here because someone more powerful had decided their story didn't matter. When the doors opened, my heart started racing. Horizon Tech's legal team was already inside, 3 lawyers in crisp suits. Confident, calm, like this was just another meeting on their calendar. Seeing them made anger rise in my chest. They looked nothing like people who had shattered someone's world. And then I saw her. Mia. She sat 2 rows ahead, staring straight at the floor. Hands clenched in her lap. She looked smaller than I remembered. No power, no confidence, just someone trying to disappear. For a second, our eyes met. She looked away first. I didn't know what I expected to feel, rage. Maybe, but what I felt was something colder. Finality. The judge entered, and everyone stood. The room settled into a tense silence as the clerk called the case. Hearing my name out loud, tied to words like wrongful termination and defamation, made it feel terrifyingly real. This wasn't just my story anymore. It was a record. Miss Patel gave the opening statement. She spoke about a young professional who had given years of loyalty to a company, only to be discarded without a fair hearing. She talked about evidence ignored, procedures bypassed, and a life turned upside down by an accusation that was never properly investigated. As she spoke, I felt like she was telling my story better than I ever could. Then it was their turn. Horizon's lead lawyer stood up. Voice smooth, confident. He painted a picture of a company forced to make a difficult decision to protect its employees. He spoke about credible allegations and acting in good faith. Not once did he look at me. To him, I was just a name on a file. When witnesses began, my heart pounded louder with every name called. Neha was one of the first. She walked to the stand, nervous but determined, and told the court she had worked near me and Mia for over a year. She said she had never seen me behave inappropriately, that Mia often complained about being overlooked for promotion, and had said, more than once, that some people don't deserve to be here as much as others. The defense tried to shake her. Isn't it true, their lawyer asked, that you're friends with the plaintiff? Neha swallowed. We were coworkers, not close friends. So you could be biased. She looked straight at him. I could be honest. I wanted to stand up and thank her. Then came the emails. Miss Patel projected them onto a screen. Internal HR messages discussing my case before I'd ever been interviewed. The same line burned on the wall for everyone to see. Even if the evidence is thin, it's safer for the company to let him go. A murmur ran through the courtroom. For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across the faces of Horizon's lawyers. Mia's affidavit was entered next. She was called to testify. Watching her walk to the stand felt surreal. This was the woman who had ended my career with a few sentences. Now every word she spoke would be under oath. Her voice shook as she admitted she had lied. That she had accused me because she believed the promotion was already hers. That when HR immediately sided with her. She panicked and went along with it. Tears rolled down her face as she said, I didn't think it would go this far. I didn't think he'd lose everything. I sat there, fists clenched. Because I had lost everything. The defense tried to paint her as confused, pressured, unstable. But the truth was already out. When it was time for me to testify, my legs felt like they might give way as I walked to the stand. Miss Patel's voice was calm. She asked me about my work, my record the day HR called me in. I described sitting in that small room, being told the accusation, feeling the floor drop out from under me. I told them how I begged to explain, how no one listened, how I was escorted out like a criminal. Then the defense questioned me. They asked about my messages to coworkers, about my tone, about whether I'd ever joked with Mia. They were searching for anything to twist. Did you ever compliment her? The lawyer asked. Yes, I said, like I did with everyone about her work. So you admit you paid special attention to her? No, I said firmly. I admit I was professional. He frowned, moved on. When I stepped down, my shirt was damp with sweat. The day ended with closing arguments scheduled for the next hearing. As people filed out, I stayed seated for a moment, breathing, letting it sink in. My life had just been examined in public. Outside, Miss Patel turned to me. You did well, she said. I was terrified, I admitted. She smiled slightly. That means you're human, not guilty. As we walked down the courthouse steps, sunlight hit my face, warm and bright. For the first time in a long while, it didn't feel mocking. It felt like hope. But I also knew this wasn't over yet. Because when truth challenges power, power never falls quietly. The night before the verdict, I didn't sleep. I lay on my back staring at the ceiling fan in my apartment as it creaked in slow circles, counting rotations like they might somehow calm my racing mind. Every possible outcome played in my head on repeat. What if the judge didn't believe us? What if the company's lawyers were better? I thought about my parents, who still barely spoke to me, about the friends who had quietly drifted away once my name became associated with scandal. And I wondered if this was the moment it would finally end, for better or worse. By morning my eyes burned and my head throbbed. But there was no choice. I put on my only decent suit, the one I'd bought for interviews I never got to attend, and headed back to the courthouse. Inside courtroom 3, everything felt quieter than before. No murmurs, no restless movement, just people waiting. Mia wasn't there. Part of me was relieved. Another part wondered if she couldn't face it. Miss Patel sat beside me, flipping through her notes even though we both knew there was nothing left to say. The arguments were done, the evidence was in, now it was out of our hands. When the judge entered, my heart hammered so hard I could hear it in my ears. We stood, then sat. The judge adjusted his glasses and looked down at the papers in front of him. The silence stretched, every second felt like a minute. This court has carefully reviewed the evidence and testimony presented in this case, he began. I gripped the edge of the bench, knuckles turning white. He spoke about Horizon Tech's failure to follow proper investigation procedures, about internal communications that showed bias, about the damaging impact of false allegations on an employee's career and mental well-being. With every sentence, hope grew, but I was too afraid to trust it. Then he said the words I had been desperate to hear. The court finds in favor of the plaintiff. For a moment, I didn't understand. My brain froze. Then Miss Patel's hand squeezed my arm. We won, she whispered. The air rushed out of my lungs like I'd been holding my breath for years. The judge continued, outlining the damages Horizon Tech would have to pay: lost wages, emotional distress, and additional penalties for wrongful termination. He also ruled that Mia was legally responsible for defamation, making her personally liable for part of the damages. It felt unreal, like I was watching someone else's life unfold. When the gavel finally came down, it wasn't loud, but in my head it sounded like thunder. Outside the courtroom, reporters waited. Microphones appeared in front of my face before I could process what had happened. How do you feel? Someone asked. I paused. I feel like I finally got my name back. I said, that matters more than anything. Miss Patel smiled proudly beside me. I didn't feel joy. I felt empty. Relief, yes, but also exhaustion so deep it seemed to reach my bones. This fight had kept me alive for months. Every day had been about survival, about proving I wasn't the monster they painted me to be. Now it was over, and I didn't know what came next. Later that evening, I sat alone in my apartment. The court documents spread across my table. The numbers were there, more money than I'd ever imagined having. But when I looked at them, I didn't see wealth. I saw years I couldn't get back. Nights I'd spent staring at walls, wondering if life was worth continuing. Phone calls I'd never received. Opportunities that had vanished. Money couldn't fix those. Still, it meant something. It meant I could breathe again. My phone buzzed. A message from my mom. We heard about the verdict. Maybe it's time we talk. I stared at the screen for a long time before locking my phone without replying. That night, for the first time in months, I slept. Not because everything was fixed, but because, finally, I wasn't fighting anymore. And tomorrow, I would have to figure out who I was without the battle.